2020 Digital Symposium. Thank you to our platinum sponsors, Ciena, Huawei, and ZTE. Before we begin, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. On the left-hand side of your screen is the Q&A. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can type your question into the Q&A box and submit your questions to our speakers. All questions will be saved, so if we don't get to answer you, we may follow up via email. At the bottom of your audience console are multiple application widgets you can use. If you have any technical difficulties, please click on the yellow help widget. Here you can find answers to common questions. A copy of today's slide deck is available for download in the green resource list widget, as well as other resources made available for download from our sponsors. Please do check those out. Towards the end of today's presentation, we'll ask for your feedback. A survey will pop open on your screen, and this will only take 1 minute to complete. Your feedback is extremely helpful. An on-demand version of the webcast will be available about 1 day after the event and can be accessed using the same audience link that was sent to you earlier today. I would now like to turn the event over to Light Reading's contributing editor and moderator, Robert Clark.
Thank you, Reagan, and good afternoon to all in Asia. Good evening, America. Good morning, EMEA. Welcome to the Asia Tech 2020 Digital Symposium on Telco Cloud. We're looking forward today to a vibrant discussion on one of the most fascinating and important areas of telecom and IT. But before I go on, an apology. One of our speakers, Ayush Bhatnagar from Reliance Jio, is ill and can't present to us today. Sorry to hear that, Ayush. Get well soon. In his place, we're being aided by an analyst with many years' experience covering the telecom sector, Ross O'Brien from the independent research firm Intersect. Welcome, Ross. I look forward to chatting to you later. Now, we know that the telco cloud, or the virtualization of key functions, is essential, if not actually inevitable, for the telecom industry and for enterprise. But knowing that does not make the journey any easier. There are big challenges across the board for the telcos and for enterprise and other organizations. To help us understand that, this journey, we have two speakers, an analyst and a vendor representative to address us today. Before I call on the first speaker, a reminder, we really do seek your participation. We really want to hear what you think. We want to take your questions. We'd love to hear you, love to get your questions and your experiences if you've dealt with virtualized services or you've built them. Please post your questions in the Q&A panel and we will get to them at the Q&A session. Please don't hesitate. So, finally, I call on our first speaker, Adeline Phua, Principal Analyst, WAN Transformation at Omdia. Over to you, Adeline.
Thank you, Robert. Welcome, everyone, to the Asia Tech Digital Symposium. Let me bring you through. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about the telco cloud today. So where are we on the telco cloud? Before that, just a little bit of a housekeeping on the Omdia side. Quick note to say that the webinar slides are actually subjected to Omdia copyright. And let's move on. I'll be talking to you about what the telco cloud is, what the benefits telco cloud brings, where operators stand, where enterprises stand, and recommendations to close. So what is the telco cloud? So let's think about a typical scenario as an enterprise and you wish to deploy a new service across your branches. What do you actually have to do? You will have to determine who's the best partner to work with. You will work with either a vendor, a telco, or you need to subscribe to a connection service as well. You run a pilot proof of concept at one of the branches, deliver the appliance, run the relevant service application software, run a POC, determine if it's interoperable. If it's not, run through everything again, push into new applications, maybe put in a new appliance, put in the fixes, and test it till it works. Once it actually works, you establish that it actually meet all the requirements, you expand the deployment to all the other branches one by one, which basically takes a very long time, right? So it takes a while for all branches to actually have it because It doesn't mean that they have the physical boxes or the IT staff on site, and it might actually take weeks, if not months, to deliver a service. But let's take a look at what it means if we actually have, let's move a little bit into the future, have a futuristic view of the same situation. So where an enterprise wishes to deploy a new service across its branches, but this time to be delivered over the telco network. Same thing, right? You have to determine who the best partner to work with. In this case, you have to pick the telco since the service will be delivered over their network. You run a proof of concept at one of the branches. You get a plug and play device delivered to the branch. This is a one-time requirement. The box will be hosted and the service will be delivered by the telco over the network. The head office IT team will make a purchase on a self-service portal indicating which branch basically wants the service, and the service gets instantaneously delivered to the branch. Services can be delivered within minutes, if not hours, over the network, compared to days or weeks that I've actually shown you in the earlier slide. And with COVID-19, doing things the traditional way where travel is curtailed, it might even take longer, who knows? And that is the telco cloud, or NFV at scale. It is where the hardware and the software infrastructure supports flexible and efficient deployment of the applications that operators can use to manage and deliver services to enterprises. So you hear that and it sounds like there's a lot of benefits, but let's take a look deeper into what these benefits are for both the enterprises as well as the telcos. So from an enterprise perspective, if you actually were to take on NFV, you get increased service velocity, you actually have the ability to service up and down as in scale up and down as and when required. There is zero touch provisioning, end-to-end automation and orchestration, and of course, reduce manual errors with the single orchestrator managing the services at all the branches. And from a telco's point of view, how does this work? What are the benefits that it actually brings? It brings, of course, network programmability, allows delivery of new services and seamlessly, and of course, monetization opportunities as well. It's interoperable across the telco network infrastructure. It places the telco at an advantage, in my opinion, over the vendors and SIs, and of course, the hyperscalers as well. And what I do also think is that the late entrants might find that enterprises are sticky to the NSPs, that they are, or the network service providers that they are already working with on NFV. But taking a step back, let's take a look at what the situation is today as well. Telcos have actually sunk in a lot of investments into NFV for internal use, but enterprise spending on commercial NFV have not followed through. Enterprises are still thinking about NFV as buying VNFs, very tactical use kind of VNFs, one-time deployment at the data center or deployment at the cloud node, and not kind of like a strategic upgrade for the entire business. So it's not something that they're thinking of as a larger solution set. So the enterprises' revenue generated so far for telcos have not lived up to the expectations of the telcos. Bringing you to the next slide of where operators stand. And you know, what we have spoken about is that we spoke about the benefits, and it does make sense in terms of use case. But you know, however, change for anyone, be it the telco as well, it's not easy, even though the benefits are obvious. And I would say that one of the things that needs to change for telcos in the first place would be mindsets. Why? Because given that the principles of the telco network and cloud are so different, mindsets will have to change. Telco networks are hardware-based, monolithic architectures built to last for a very, very long time, or at least for a couple of years. Cloud, software-based is designed around microservices. There's a high rate of change, extremely responsive, done with containerization, able to be spun up and down very quickly. And that is very different in terms of the two things. So the mindsets for the telcos have to change to integrate both of them together. From a cloud-native perspective, cloud infrastructure needs to be upgraded either to VMs or heavy computing apps, or containerization for lighter apps, or even both in existence. So cloud-native applications combining existing and new software development patterns where the existing patterns, including things like the software automation, API integration, service-oriented architectures, and new patterns which includes the microservice architecture, containerized services, and distributed management and orchestration, which leads me to the next point on management and orchestration. So basically, operators need management and orchestration tools to manage the network, each VNF or service, and also the infrastructure itself. So there is the NFV orchestrator, NFV manager, VNF manager, and the VIM, which is the virtual infrastructure manager. The NFV orchestrator will be managing the onboarding of VNFs, lifecycle management, global resource management, and validation and authorization of NFVI resource request. And how about the NFV manager? What does it do? It controls the VNF lifecycle instances, provide the coordination and adaptation role for the NFVI, and element or network management systems, configuration, and also event reporting. And of course, the infrastructure itself, which is the virtual infrastructure manager, controls and manages all the compute, storage, and network resources. And one more point to bring across would be building a self-service enterprise portal where enterprises can actually log on and run or sign on or subscribe to a service as and when required. All of this takes time to build. Last but not least, there's also linking up to the OSS BSS systems. Traditionally, when enterprises subscribe to a service, it's for a longer contractual period, but that has now changed with NFV, and customers want the ability to adapt to the changing business needs very quickly. Likewise, OSS and BSS has to be automated and move at the same speed as NFV is being spun up or down. Manual processes can only cause bottlenecks. So with all these complexities in terms of the adoption, it is not surprising that operators who embrace microservices opt to start with maybe a smaller footprint, minimum viable product before building more and more NFV systems and service wraps over time. It is also no wonder why only some of the most innovative, forward-thinking telcos are biting the bullet on this front. We did a survey. Okay, this Omdia conducted a survey with approximately 100 telcos globally in mid-2020 to uncover their attitudes and behaviors towards NFV adoption. And from this chart, you can actually see that slightly over 50% of operators surveyed have started deployment or intend to in 2020. Another 24.5% or a quarter of the enterprises, a quarter of the enterprises are starting deployment in 2021. And of course, there's going to be another 15.7 that's holding out to the year after, and the rest have zero visibility or minimal visibility as to when they are actually going to be doing the deployment for the telco cloud or NFV. So the transformation of the traditional telco network into a highly flexible and scalable software-driven infrastructure is accelerating. And we do expect that NFV and virtualization will continue to play an essential part of an operator's larger network transformation strategy. And only in the telco cloud can operators truly realize the benefit of NFV that NFV actually promises. We have seen what the enterprise or what the operators can do or where the operators stand. And from an enterprise point of view, where do they stand today? When Omdia did a survey again, and this time we conducted a global survey with enterprises. This was in early 2020 to understand their adoption plans. We did a similar survey in 2018 as well, and we juxtaposed both information sets to try to see what has changed. Are enterprises taking on NFV more today compared to the past? So NFV is definitely gaining traction from 20% with some form of NFV deployment in 2018 to 41% today in the survey that we actually conducted earlier this year. We can also expect the growth with 37% more of the respondents indicating that they are considering deployment in the next 24 months. In the same survey, we looked into why customers are not deploying NFV today. And the key challenges that they have cited includes the lack of expertise in-house, which is why it's good to actually outsource some of these as well, and security, which is an issue that as long as there's a new deployment, security always comes as one of the key challenges that enterprises face. There is also about 10% of the respondents who have indicated that they have not yet assessed NFV as a technology yet. We have to remember that this is a journey and it's not a one-time installation for telcos, likewise for enterprises who tend to like to try and test things out bits by bits before taking on a larger deployment. So what can we expect is for more services and service reps to be made available by telcos as the technology matures, and that's when enterprises will be able to have a bigger adoption as well. Bringing you to the recommendation slide then. So basically, NFV deployment is challenging despite its benefits, and not all telcos are ready to take it on. Telcos, for Omdia, we believe that it's important for telcos to not be left out of the game, and it's a promise of the telco cloud that resonates with the new work style. Think about it, right? Businesses are actually looking at things to be instantaneous today, scalable, not hampered by distance. They want things to be flexible. And this is what NFV or the telco cloud can bring to the table for enterprises. Telco needs to commit to NFV, create an NFV strategy, and take it on step by step, adding service reps, system reps along the deployment journey. Do also note that standards are actually still evolving, so telcos can get around this by adopting more open platforms. For enterprises, they are actually also on the path to adopt NFV, as you can see from my earlier slide. NFV promises to deliver services to the site and have a standardized service delivery to all sites that is ideal and easy to manage. With the promise of automation, there will be less chance for manual errors. And some of our studies have also indicated that enterprises who adopt various WAN transformation solutions, they actually get more value if they adopt more than one solution. So what enterprises can do is to consider also looking at things like SD-WAN, hybrid networking, flex bandwidth. The potential of NFV will increase as 5G becomes available as well, with low latency, high bandwidth availability. Enterprises can work with partners today to innovate on possible use cases that will apply to their businesses and kind of couple that with NFV with the likes of 5G, edge computing, and even IoT to bring them to the next level. And with that, I thank you for your time and attention. Handing it back to you, Robert.
Thank you very much, Adeline. That was a fascinating and deeply researched analysis, and I'm looking forward very much to talking to you about that shortly.
Sure.
Now from the analyst entire whole of industry view from Adeline, we turn to Huawei for a deep dive vendor view of how telcos can tackle some of the issues in the transition to telco cloud. So let me please introduce Akik Fazlul Haque, Senior Consultant in the Huawei Cloud Core product line. Thank you, Akik.
Hi, thanks, Robert. Hello, everyone. I'm Akik from Huawei Cloud Core product line. Welcome you all to this session. I will talk about the industry requirements on next generation telco cloud platform for 5G network and the solution as well. So, okay, here comes the next slide. So if we follow 5G's progress since 2019, what we find it is actually embracing increasing commercial realization across the continents, and obviously operators from different tiers. So what we saw that the confidence across the industry is it's clearly visible with operators, clear strategy, the vertical industries growing interest in 5G, and successful collaborative efforts across the ecosystem. As you can see in the slide, I put some data about the Janfeng Cup. We actually served more than 3,700 5G to be use cases in this competition that it was held last year, October. And what we found, the use cases, it was actually 10 times more than the 2018. It obviously sent a good message to the industry. And you can see also there that the joint projects between Huawei operator and industry partners, actually we saw multiple wins in this category. From this competition, two cases. One is a smart grid project with China Southern Power Grid, along with China Mobile. And another case was it's a smart factory, the machine vision smart factory case project with Haque Electronics. These two projects were selected as a GSMA POC case study from this competition. So what I actually wanted to say here, that this is a very good indication to the telco industry. And obviously the operators, that's why what we see, the operators are preparing their network to meet the diverse requirements of the vertical industry services. Their telco cloud, they know that their telco cloud must meet certain crucial requirements in 5G era. Like the cloud native 5G 2C 2B applications, these will come from the different sources. So they need a correct balance between the security and efficiency. It's very necessary for them. And that's why actually they need to consider virtual machine and continuous coexistence for a long time. Another thing is that, the 5G services, the increasing 5G services, you will see more and more edge sites, and the edge sites, it may go deeper. So you may need a distributed cloud architecture. Besides that, the microservice-based applications, container for lightweight and first-changing applications, operators, they need to consider these things while moving to 5G. So what do we understand that operators need the ideal NFVI solution to handle all these requirements while evolution to 5G. Now, I think you know that about the OpenStack. I think you know that the OpenStack has been playing an important role in operators' transformation programs for the last 10 years. I saw a hybriding research where I found that the 84% of operators, they said that the OpenStack has been essential or important to their company's success. Now, with the shifting gaze toward cloud-native technologies, more specifically, it's the Kubernetes for the flexible, scalable, and automated capabilities. The trend, I think you see that the trend is increasing Kubernetes deployment in the 5G network, and it is becoming imminent. And we understand that the coexistence of virtual machine and container, it is imperative in 5G network, at least for a certain long time, at least till the container gets the telco grade maturity. Now, if we focus on operators' transition to 5G and Kubernetes adoption for a moment, we will see evolution to OpenStack and Kubernetes environment actually involves a lot of challenges for the operators. By this time, I don't know whether you know that, the container platform with Kubernetes, it has 30 times more interfaces to cloud-native functions than OpenStack hypervisor. And the interfaces, the standardization progress of these interfaces, the Kubernetes under ETSI is still at the early phase. Another thing is that the native Kubernetes, it lacks the telco capabilities, such as the carrier grade performance, handling the multiple VNF network planes, and so forth. Besides lack of smooth evolution from a virtual machine to container, this is also a big challenge for the operators. The operators, they don't want that they have one OpenStack installation there, pool, and then another standalone Kubernetes stack. Actually, they are not favoring this type of solution. So, therefore, what we understand that there is a requirement of converged OpenStack and Kubernetes platform to eliminate these challenges while evolution into 5G SA. It is the mandatory requirement now in the industry. So here comes Huawei's dual engine TCC. TCC is the Telco Converged Cloud. It is an OpenStack and Kubernetes-based converged infrastructure. This is the ideal commercial solution to match industry need for 5G asset network. Till now, TCC is the industry's first hyper-converged infrastructure and platform with dual support for Kubernetes and OpenStack for both 5G core network, 2B and 2C applications from central DC to light SDC, and it also comes with unified resource management for multiple OpenStack and Kubernetes instances. I'll talk about this URM in the next slide. And this solution, it is open source based. It's an upstream Kubernetes and OpenStack with carrier grade enhancement in both Kubernetes and OpenStack scope, which supports a smooth evolution to 5G SA. So let's see the next slide. So here it is URM. What I said that TCC is based on in-depth convergence of Huawei's commercial OpenStack and Kubernetes release, and including unified resource management, that is URM. On the left side, that what I wrote there, you can see there. I mean, in the typical practices where actually the URM is absent, the unified resource management is absent, operator they have to build a separate OpenStack resource pool for virtual machines, and another resource pool for Kubernetes for container. Now, what happens? I mean, in course of time, as services migrate to from virtual machine to container, or when more and more 5G services get deployed, operator, they actually go for reusing the virtual machines hardware in the container resource pool. And for that, operator has to shift the hardware manually. Now, this problem is solved by the URM. Here, URM, what it is providing, it is actually providing the auto-resource provisioning. So the auto-resource provisioning of TCC's URM, it is actually eliminating the problem. How? URM actually ensures one hardware resource pool under one unified management, and it can reallocate the physical nodes on demand between the Kubernetes and OpenStack instance. So what's the result? The result is you can actually, you don't need to provision a lot of hardware resources for the individual OpenStack and individual Kubernetes. Rather, you put one unified resources that is managed by unified resource management, and these resources can be on demand, allocated on demand, whoever needs it. So here, actually, we can ensure 30% resource efficiency. That's the beauty of this unified resource management, or URM. And so I think by this time you know that 5G needs a distributed network, and therefore it is very much necessary that TCC provides the solution and support to the DC networks from central to edge or light edge as it required, so that the performance and efficiency is maintained. Now, we understand that the requirement of edge or edge sites are not same as central DC or control plane. I think by this time you were aware of that. Like if we talk about the central DC, they are not typically not many in the network. Central DC houses multiple heavy VNFs, virtual network functions, which are mostly control plane functions. I think you know that. And these functions generally, they are more stable in nature, and they may need less frequent update or upgrade compared to the edge applications. And these VNFs or CNFs, CNFs means cloud native functions. These VNFs or CNFs, they're typically from multiple sources, and they need very good isolation on the same infrastructure. So therefore, virtual machine and virtual machine-based containers are best choice in the central DC-based control plane. And of course, central DC, it has full-fledged management cluster too. Now, if we come to the edge, when you come to the edge, that is actually the less host. It may not have management cluster, rather managed from the central DC. And it may also have functions from different sources. And therefore, again, it's the virtual machine and virtual machine-based containers are suggested here, at least till container gets enough maturity in terms of security. But what about the light edge? The light edge, it is the very light version of edge, and they have very less resources. You know, I mean, what we predict that if in course of time, I mean, as 5G gets the popularity, these light edges, they will be more and more. You will see more and more in the network. And in fact, this OpenStack and Kubernetes-based platform, it would be very heavy burden for all these light edge sites. So what we did, we adopted a very agile and slim approach for this type of edge. I mean, the light edge. I mean, that what I said, that these light edge sites, it will be more prominent in 5G network in course of time. So what we did, that we actually brought the TCC, as we know that it's a TCC is the converged solution of OpenStack and Kubernetes, but we brought this TCC as the modular type, so that in the light edge, you don't need to install or deploy the TCC OpenStack model, rather you deploy the Kubernetes model, and so that the bare metal container can provide the better performance here. So, and finally, what I want to say in this slide, the content what you see here, that for all these edge scenarios, edge center management collaboration is very much necessary. Huawei's edge solution, it comes with the remote management facilities as well, I mean, which is not actually in our discussion scope today. So what does that mean? That I say that these edge and light edge, they don't need the management cluster yet. So that means they can be managed from the central side. Although I'm not discussing it here, maybe in some other discussions, I will show it to you. So that's about the TCC, how TCC delivers the adopted solution for distributed cloud in 5G. Finally, in this slide, I actually want to discuss something from the much broader aspect. We talked about the telco cloud requirements in last a few minutes, but if we study the cloud transformation across the tiers, we clearly see two very distinct paths. One is a business-led approach, where a single vendor solution can quickly build agile cloud infrastructure and improve carriers' cloud-based network construction and O&M efficiency, and operations and maintenance efficiency. Another approach is a platform-driven approach, where multi-vendor solutions are integrated. But what we all see, I think you know very well, the industry transformation, what happens in last 6-7 years, till now, the industry favors the business-driven approach, and obviously with layered open architecture. Now here, I put two tier 1 operator cases. Both of these operators, they're big operators, one from Europe and one from Latin America. They had tried for 2-3 years to deploy multi-vendor platform. The European operator, that's what you can see on your left, the European operator declared very slow progress after 3 years, and they told in public that only few IT applications onboarded after 3 years of struggle. So, and finally, many of their opcos, operating companies, they implemented actually the full stack solution from Huawei to enter into the business as quick as possible. The Latin American operator on your right did the same after unsuccessful POC and trial for 2 years. Now, if we analyzed all of our projects, we did some analysis internally, and we also shared this analysis to our partners, to our customers. So we analyzed all of our projects data and found that if we take the ATCA era deployment as a benchmark, that what you can see on the slide on the right side below, if we take the ATCA era deployment as a benchmark, what do we see? That single vendor deployment, it takes 5 months. That actually what we are trying right at this moment to bring within 3 months. And where a multi-vendor approach, it takes 14.5 months at the best case scenario, and which may take as long as 2 years. Now, if we see just to see the cross-layer fault demarcations, now I'm just actually taking you to the box-to-box on the slide just to give you some comparison. Now, if you see the status of cross-layer fault demarcation, you will see that if it is the pre-integrated solution from Huawei, the Huawei's pre-integrated solution scenario, the 80% fault demarcated in remarkably 60 minutes. In multi-vendor scenario, this 85% fault demarcation, it takes more than 2 days. In some severe cases, it takes 2 weeks. Now, if you see on your left side, that what I actually wrote there, this is the NFVI integration. That is the biggest challenge in multi-vendor scenario. If I give a comparison, with Huawei's pre-integrated solution scenario, operator, that's the first one is the operator's pre-integrated solution scenario. Operator, they can upgrade all NFVI OS hosts in one maintenance window, and because the compatibility is ensured among the releases. So the operator, they actually don't need to upgrade the VNF, and that's not necessary. But in multi-vendor scenario, it's a different story. It actually needs multiple maintenance windows, which is surely, I think you understand now, which is surely high OpEx driven. Another challenge that what we found, the many NFVI OS suppliers fail to maintain compatibility among releases, because they only supply NFVI OS operating system, and they lack good amount of knowledge in telco network and services. As such, what happens? As such, when you upgrade the NFVI OS, you may need to upgrade all the VNFs and CNFs again, because there is a compatibility problem, and that's a really disaster for the operator. We have experienced several such cases in our multi-vendor projects. And because of compatibility problem, even after upgrade, performance may decline up to 20%. So what we suggest that telco cloud transformation should consider a business-led approach, must ensure that the solution architecture is open. At least consider NFVI operating system from the same vendor so that the agility, efficiency, and the reliabilities are ensured. So that's all actually from this session. I explained the necessity of telco converged cloud for the operators during evolution to 5G. Being the only commercial solution in the industry, Huawei's TCC can deliver a smooth evolution with OpenStack and Kubernetes-based dual engine. I think you understand this these things right already in this session. And operators, they can achieve 30% resource efficiency using URM, if you can remember, Unified Resource Management, which will be very crucial in 5G resource-hungry network after some days. And as last I also explained, the TCC, how TCC is an adaptive solution for the operators' distributed cloud. So that's all from my side. Thank you all. You can request more information from me. Here is my email address. You can also browse the resource tab from the dashboard. So that's all. Thank you. Thank you very much. Back to you, Robert.
Thank you, Akik. That is what I call a deep dive. That's really interesting, and in particular, sort of the points you made about, excuse me, those points about multi-vendor versus single vendor. I think we're increasingly going to be hearing a lot about that, about multi-vendor integration issues, and the advantages and disadvantages of multi versus single vendor. That definitely looks like a live issue for the industry. So we're just about to move on to the panel session, but before we do, a reminder about the Q&A button. Don't hesitate to hit that if you have a question, a comment, or an experience to share. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, finally, this is the panel session, and so I will call on Adeline Phua, who you've met before, and Ross O'Brien from Interceded. Now, I want to start with you first, Ross. There are a lot of moving parts in telco cloud. There's quite a lot to get to grips with. So perhaps, Ross, you can give a big picture view of what are some of the biggest challenges involved in moving to telco cloud?
Nice and easy softball to start off. Thanks, Rob. I think that I think as our presenters accurately portrayed, that there are many things that have to be done at once, and I think that perhaps one of the greatest challenges is the fact that that it isn't just a single purpose migration. It's a fairly multifaceted part of any carrier's digital transformation strategy. So while telco cloud possibly had its origin story in migrating applications and capabilities, resources for a carrier's own network operations, it obviously has bled over into the entirety of a carrier's service. And here's where I think that the key issue is for CSPs today. As was pointed out several times by my colleagues, there's an extraordinary opportunity for carriers in 5G services around enterprise-specific managed service offerings, whether it's multi-access edge computing, provisioning for constellations of IoT services, or just basically providing ultra-reliable, ultra-high broadband, ultra-low latency services. There's a wealth of services for enterprises that haven't that mobile-oriented carriers haven't yet really sunk their teeth into. And so I think that overcoming the challenges around moving all these many parts to the cloud is going to require, in a sense, a catalyst event. And I think the transition to enterprise-centric services is going to provide that catalyst. I mean, I've spoken to many CIOs over the past quarter about about how they've been managing the shift in operations due to the COVID pandemic, and not to necessarily change gears, but to just provide an analogy. Nearly everyone has ironically said that all COVID did was put our validate our digital transformation strategy and give us the impetus to accelerate that plan. And I think that seeking a robust set of enterprise services is that, if you like, COVID moment for CSPs. ISPs. In chasing the opportunity that 5G provides for enterprise services, that will help galvanize and coordinate efforts around moving their entire IT and network operations onto the cloud and seek that elusive cloud native performance that my colleagues mentioned earlier.
Okay, Adeline, I'm going to ask you the same question. And how do you see the biggest challenges?
Sure. I think mindset is the first thing. I actually brought it up earlier as well, and I put it right up front because I think if this doesn't change, nothing will change. And you have to remember that, I mean, telcos are actually building monolithic architectures, and this will not change, and that will not change for many years. And also the rather standard contracts that their customers have in terms of services, that's also another challenge that they will have to deal with. And they are inherently not cloud ready and for the high rate of change. So that's going to be some of the key challenges that I see telcos have to address. There's also the existing legacy infrastructure to be considered, and the migration journey is going to take some time. In fact, one of the things to share also is that we actually did a survey earlier this year, and we asked a question around this, right? What are the challenges? What are the key challenges that telcos actually have when they're actually trying to do NFV deployment? And three things came up as the top challenges. The first thing is around security. And of course, this is going to be a top concern as with most new deployments. Security cannot fail. And as a service provider for enterprises, this will definitely impact enterprises' trust in the platform. And therefore, that is going to be a very important thing for telcos to make sure it's working, and also that it is actually able to, that's also the reason why it's top of mind for them. The second thing that they actually talked about in terms of challenges is legacy infrastructure, right? So how does one migrate out of legacy infrastructure? And, you know, so there was a joke that I heard a long time ago, and it's talking about a network that doesn't ever go down for the reason that nothing ever changes. You don't take out a cable, you don't put in new services, and because of that, it never goes down. But it can't be the case when you're actually talking about migration. There's going to be new things that needs to be added in, new applications, new systems, new appliance. It has to change, right? And there's also the issue of management and orchestration that came in as the third point in terms of the challenge for the telcos. There are many pieces to the jigsaw puzzle that needs to be managed, be it the internet telco network, to the VNFs to be managed and delivered to the clients seamlessly when required, for it to be spun up and down according to the contracts. All these are very minute details, but these details will make a service. So I'll say that it's challenging, but the benefits are also obvious. And I believe that is a journey that telcos have to make sooner or later.
I don't think there was much dispute about that. But we are, as Ross referenced, we are in the middle of the pandemic crisis. And in your view, what kind of impact has that been having on virtualization and cloud plans?
Sure. So if we actually take a step back and we think about COVID-19, right, and when it actually first came into play globally, I would say that it kind of hit the globe or the world around Q1 2020, so early on of this year. And I do believe that in the first 3 months of this year, in the first 3 quarters of this year, a lot of enterprises are actually responding to the disruption. What do we do now that everybody's working from home? What do we do now when the VPN is not working? What do we do now when collaboration tools are not in place? And these are all the short-term, very tactical improvements or changes that needs to be made for enterprises. And that's going to be the first phase, which we call respond. And then there's going to be a kind of like a change to the second phase, which we call adjust. And this is going to be taking place, I would believe it's going to be in Q4 to Q2 of next year. And this is where enterprises kind of know like where the view is. You have a view that things are going to change, and you are going to start reassessing what are the systems that you have in place, the subscriptions that you have in place, the IT infrastructure that you have in place, and apply those changes because of what has changed or what's going on in the environment today, whether or not they scale back or scale up, depending on requirements of the business. And then comes to post Q3, where we actually see that that's going to be the build time. And for that, I do think that that's going to be, as per your question, when is it going to be a take up on cloud, on the telco cloud? I think that's going to be in phase 3. That's going to be, I would say, probably in the second half of next year, where after enterprises react, balance out their own infrastructure investments that they have today, and see what's the new thing that they can actually tap on to grow their business, to bring the business to the next level. I hope that addresses your question.
Thanks, Adeline. Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Akik right now, and because good things coming through, I'm going to ask you, Akik, about, from a vendor point of view, what you see as some of the big challenges.
I mean, to answer your questions, I actually want to, probably I could mention many challenges. So here, right at this moment, I mentioned 2 challenges that what we see actually from our experience in the industry. The first one is from the operator side. I mean, whether the cloud-based transformation should be driven by platform-oriented approach or the business-oriented single-vendor approach. Okay, here this is a big challenge for the operators. Okay, you know. What we see in the platform-driven approach, the operators, they need to take the multi-vendor system integration responsibilities in most cases. And for these, they must have the skill sets. They must have the skill sets. They must have the organizational setup for that. They may need to set up an open lab at their premises, you know, for the integration purpose. Besides, you know, they actually they have to be mentally prepared for huge capex and opex investment for at least 2 years, and you know they may have to struggle to achieve the carrier grade reliability, and they should accept that their business may get delayed. So this is, I mean, from their point of view, I mean, you know, the skill sets, the lack of skill sets, lack of organizational setup, and huge, you know, the capex and opex burden, and you know, business delay. I think this. I mean, because they are moving to 5G. Okay, they are having a huge, I mean, a good strategy for that. But this is a very big challenge for them, and how to address these issues. And if I narrow it down, I see another big challenge. That is from the NFVI OS integration point of view. I already talked about this part. I found that most of the operators, those who are actually already moved in the cloud or trying to move, they are facing huge challenge here. You know, I mean, when the challenge actually comes when they select the VNF and the NFVI OS from the separate vendors. Because, you know, when NFVI was actually selected from the vendors who are not traditional telco suppliers. I think you got my point. So these NFVI OS actually not much telco enhanced. And sometimes because the VNFs come from one vendor, the traditional telco vendors, and the NFVI OS comes not from the traditional telco suppliers. So sometimes these NFVI OS, they are not compatible in their successive releases, and they are not aware of carrier grade reliabilities. So this brings actually big problems, big troubles to the operators. So that's why, I mean, what we see that, and what we also suggest in the project scenario, that whatever it is, Huawei or some others, at least, I mean, go for the VNF and NFVI OS. It should go to the same vendor at least, so that their challenges, they can handle the challenges, they can handle the troubles. So that's what I wanted to tell to you for your these questions. I hope you understood.
Sure. Thanks, Akik. Yeah, I mean, I think that that single vendor, multi-vendor thing is such an issue because there's no easy way through this, and telcos are searching for different options. So they're going for some of the non-traditional vendors who do have some of the skills, but as I say, you have to solve the integration challenge. All right, but that does lead on to the next topic, which I want to ask Ross about, which is about partnering for Telco Cloud. Now, what sort of partners do telcos need to find, and how do they identify them?
Well, I think just step back a second. I think that sort of partnerships in general is while telcos have obviously been doing this for a long time, have sought relationships with technology partners and vendors and other fellow travelers. I think that's proven to that will continue to be a key challenge for them going forward. And then again, we step back. If we accept the premise that that on the road to 5G, the quest to deliver ultra-responsive enterprise services is a key driver and a key catalyst point. That's going to require a very radical mindset shift. I mean, to borrow my colleague's phrase, and it's going to involve looking at an ecosystem of relationships almost like a systems integrator. And again, this is where kind of just having building a cloud and sort of building a cloud mindset in your business operation helps. Open API ecosystems, absolutely critical. Carriers are not going to be able to deliver the specificity that is required across an infinite number of use cases and different vertical applications. I mean, a lot of carriers talk a good Industry 4.0 game. Many, by virtue of their backyard markets, have certain vertical expertise. Sort of call out a Telstra for having enterprise vertical expertise in, say, resource extraction or public utilities. Looking over here in Hong Kong to a company like SmartTone, who's got a certain bit of expertise around the construction and real estate industry. But more often is the case that carriers will have to build up a very open, very flexible open API approach so that they can possibly accommodate enterprise services from a variety of places. I mean, this coupled with a pretty strong relationship with cloud hyperscale players as well, and we already see this going in AWS's relationships with leaders like Vodafone around developing multi-access enterprise or rather multi-access edge computing or MEC services, that type of thing we're going to start seeing a lot more of as pushing capabilities into edge networks is going to be a key way of delivering enterprise grade services, and you're going to have relationships with the hyperscale players. I mean, first, or sort of finally, all this kind of sort of centers around a fairly open, neutral approach to cloud environments and being able to manage in multi-cloud environments. I mean, one of the key challenges for carriers going forward is that oftentimes carriers are not seen as, ironically, the best partners for helping enterprises develop their 5G network services. And many of the companies that they are collaborating with, again, the hyperscalers, are potential competitors for that enterprise business. But no one but the CSP can develop an incredibly sort of vendor agnostic, platform agnostic approach and deliver on the SLAs that enterprises require. And this adds to the final bit of that equation that I see, is that one of the key things CSPs need to look at, in addition to developing open, very flexible, very nimble approaches to partner ecosystems, is to also double down, triple down on their automation and AI investments. Just being able to spin up these enterprise-grade services to scale at the availability requirements needed, at the SLAs demanded, across, again, an infinite number of potential use cases and vertical-specific application requirements. This is going to require a hefty amount of automation in the service production and management environment.
Thanks, Ross. But is one part of it also have telcos having to give up a bit of control, or are going to share control with other parties?
Well, yeah, but I think that's again, and this does go to the mindset, and yes, these new working relationships are a work in process. I mean, when we talk to telcos on the journey to enterprise 5G services, very few of them have kind of a set have a set business plan for how they engage with partners. There's no standard set of terms around revenue sharing, and there's often quite a bit of improvisation, if you like, around how to develop the relationship with the enterprise. But again, you know, if we think about what is the core competence of the CSP in this ecosystem, it is the ability to define and manage carrier-grade SLAs, and this is something that even the big hyperscalers, by virtue of the fact that they are trying to service, even at the enterprise level, mass market requirements, cannot deliver. It is the telco's ability to package those offerings in a well-defined, well-managed, and SLA guaranteed enterprise offering. So while you are going to have to give up some control, I do think that it'll shake out that the CSP will be in a pretty pivotal position and maintain and should maintain a key client relationship role as they roll out partnership-driven enterprise services.
Okay, Adeline, I want to bring you in here because you talked about internal culture and culture change. So perhaps talk a little about mindset, which you've already mentioned, but perhaps also mindset to partnering and working with other companies.
Mm-hmm. I think what Ross actually mentioned around flexibility, nimble approach, that is kind of like a big thing that kind of sets the foundation for this further improvement in the network, right? So that's going to be what telcos will have to keep in mind to think about when they actually think about who they want to work with. They also have to think about the partner that they work with having to be open, for the reason that the standards are still evolving. So by adopting open platforms, they will not be caught in the situation where the early investments will face a challenge. So it's about having, then coming to the question about your point on, I think for a telco, when they actually think about doing this, they have to think about, monetization is something that comes to mind all the time for them. It is not going to be immediate. They will have to stay on course. However, I do think that in the next 2 to 3 years, revenue will start coming in as more enterprises will take that on, finding the right partner, having open systems, making sure that it's an open platform, will actually help as well, so that they will be able to carry forward their investments without any challenges. Being flexible, nimble approach with automation and AI in play, as Ross mentioned, yes, that's going to be also another key thing that can actually set the foundation for telcos or for the CSPs.
Okay. Well, from that, I want to pivot back to sort of Akik's deep tech issues. One of them is around the URM, the Unified Resource Management. How that relates to Huawei's TCC, the Telco Converged Cloud, and perhaps also talk a bit about whether the Telco Converged Cloud, the TCC of Huawei's, can be upgraded if you can get there from OpenStack. So maybe speak to those.
Thanks, Robert. Yes, that's URM. It is a Unified Resource Management. It is actually part of TCC. So yes, the second question it was whether TCC is upgradable from OpenStack. Yes, that is the beauty of the TCC that I mentioned in my third slide, third slide, that there is in the industry there is no smooth NFVI evolution from VM to container. What does that mean? That means that the customer, the operators, they are having the OpenStack. And then they're going for 5G. They want container, and now the thing is that because from the OpenStack they don't have any solution where actually from OpenStack based solution they can smoothly carry on the evolution to the another solution where the OpenStack and Kubernetes will be there. But I mean, they didn't have. So what are they doing in the typical cases? They're doing they have the OpenStack, and they're installing, deploying the Kubernetes. So they have two different installation deployment, and they have to, when the Kubernetes comes, they have to do the the individual integration of everything, and they are having individual or independent the resource pool. That's a big problem for them. So here, actually, TCC solved this problem. If you have the OpenStack-based solution, you can using the software upgrade, you can actually get the TCC, and that is actually the converged solutions. You don't need to have those problems, independent installation of Kubernetes and independent, the resource pool, the resource stack. You don't have to do that one. Simply software upgrade, do the smooth evolution is enough for that. I think I have answered your question.
Sure. Now let's turn to the enterprise side, and maybe Ross can help with this. Adeline showed off some of the really interesting surveys Omdia has done in among enterprises and their take up of virtualization. And it's interesting to see the change in the last couple of years. But Ross, I mean, we've touched a little on COVID-19 earlier, but what else do you think it will take to stimulate enterprise take up for cloud and virtualization?
Well, again, I mean, when we think about sort of what enterprises are looking for. Next generation services, there are those services that are obviously going to be sort of cloud enabled, and those that are going to be cloud defined, and cloud enabled is going to be basically everything. I mean, I think one large area that telcos will really need to lean into will be around the development of AI, if you like, as a service. I mean, a number of carriers around the Asia Pacific region are already kind of looking very heavily into that. Korean carriers see AI-based services as a pretty key part of their 5G enterprise offerings, and these would be both to kind of help service various parts of enterprises' own IT and service delivery operations. That is sort of white labeling customer experience chatbots, or providing a base layer of AI-assisted analytics for better customer insights, X-ray vision on supply chains and the like, but also AI-enabled tools that will help them with their own network operations from a diagnostic and responsiveness approach. I mean, I think that AI as an enabling element for internet or network security services, something that's beginning to take hold in the CIO's imagination. I mean, the short answer is that sort of anything that any sort of particular pressure that the telco itself is facing, such as ever-increasing walls of data that need to be manipulated, analyzed, and insight dragged out of, increasing amounts of traffic and bandwidth as the world will probably stay as a virtualized work from home world for some time to come, empowering and enabling better endpoint security management in a world where everybody is working from their own devices outside of the safe four walls of an enterprise. Supporting enterprises in all these kind of basic connectivity offerings is already going to require some sophisticated responses as bandwidth, latency, and connectivity requirements grow. And that's even before you get onto all the crazy edge-based applications that I alluded to earlier. And again, the role of machine learning and tools to help enterprises understand processes and their own the guts of their own operations better. That's going to be a key area where I think telcos can play a major role in redefining their value to their enterprise customers.
Okay, now look, I'm going to wind it up here with another big picture question for all of you, which is really just a forecast question. How do you think this is going to evolve? What are some of the next steps or the next milestones that we go to hit, which is going to give us some indication of to take up or expansion of Telco Cloud. So I'll start with you, Adeline.
Sure. So as the survey actually shows earlier, a good chunk of telcos are actually on this journey. We have about half of the telcos who are actually has already begun on this journey, and more to come in the coming year. So I do believe that as NFV matures, that's going to be, I would say, as telcos VNF become easy to spin up and down, and self-service portals, that would at least be about 2 years out. So from a telco perspective, getting ready to offer this full service end-to-end, I would say the earliest would be in 2022. And then if we think about from an enterprise perspective, right, where we talk about COVID-19 and how enterprises are rethinking their investments, their IT infrastructure, they're going to start thinking about building out in Q3 2021. And going forward from that as well. And this is going to be a very big kind of change for enterprises, because it's not kind of like a point solution, but more of a strategic change in thinking from the enterprise point of view as well, to the various branches. And it's not, I would also say that it will take time for them to get on that. And I would say putting us at about 2022 at the very earliest. Sorry, Robert, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, Akik. Akik, would you like to jump in here? Any milestones that you see coming up, or anything that you think we need to see to identify the take-up of greater take-up of Telco Cloud?
What I want to say here, I mean, I think that's what I mentioned in my slides, like the 5G services, okay? I mean, what we see, the 5G services are becoming more and more visible. People, I mean, the operators, they're thinking about the business cases, and obviously it will drive the telco cloud transformation more. I mean, we will see more I mean, fruitful transformation, successful transformation. Obviously, operator, they will pay more attention to construct the telco cloud. I mean, to simplify the telco cloud. I think one of our speakers, they mentioned that, I mean, it is for the operators, it's a big challenge. I mean, when they move forward to achieve the 5G, they are having the legacy installations. They are thinking that they may have the multiple cores, the core networks, multiple core networks for voice and for the data. So they will look for, I mean, as 5G I mean, the business cases are becoming mature. I mean, they will think about the more converged solution, how to get the the converged core, so that one core can satisfy their all subscribers from 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, all subscribers. So they will look for this converged solution, and I think this type of the cloud native based solution, converged solution, one core for all networks from 2G to 5G. Simplified, that can reduce the complexities and reduce the OpEx burden and also reduce the time to market. These types of solution, also from the the platform point of view, like the TCC, this type of solution, it will be more visible and more, I mean, the commercially attractive. That's what I see. I mean, it's going to happen very soon, and the operators, they will ask for more this type of solution. Yeah, back to you, Robert.
I guess so. I guess that's a job for Huawei and the other vendors, is to help obviously help simplify that the deep sort of quicksand of the complexity that the telcos face. And I think it's clear from what we've just been hearing is that telcos are making some progress in moving their way through these and starting to and having some small impact on their business. Enterprises sort of are much further behind, but also starting to roll out or deploy or experiment with them. So some of these virtualizations. So at this point, we'll move on from the panel session and take some of the answer some of the questions that have been coming in from the audience. So the first question we'll take is from Phua Tan from S Engineering on enterprise CEOs, and I'll put this to Adeline. Phua is asking, do you see enterprise CIOs need to control and ownership as a barrier towards adoption of telco cloud, i.e., giving up some power or control from enterprise to telco? Adeline.
Okay. Actually, I don't see that to be the case. In fact, a lot of enterprises, if you think about enterprises, they want to focus on the business. So I do find that enterprises are actually thinking about outsourcing things that are not